Welcome to Career Uprising. I'm your host, Lorraine Rise, a career and executive coach dedicated to helping clients who are 40 plus to break free from feeling stuck and transform into the unstoppable force you're destined to become. Let's start the uprising. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 170, From Public to Private, the resume, interview, and salary. All right, this is part 2 of our series on transitioning from the federal service to the private sector. So I'm really taking this time now in the month of March, as I said on the last episode, to support federal workers who are affected by the layoffs and the buyout program. So if you did not listen to the first episode, make sure to go back and do that. You can do it after this one if you want. Doesn't really matter. But I'm really devoting a lot of my content in the month of March on LinkedIn and on this podcast to helping federal employees. So a little bit of a niche focus, but it's so timely and so relevant. And to be honest, we're still recording this at the end of February. By the time this comes out in mid-March, things could be different, right? There's a lot of legal challenges being thrown up. I don't know what is going to happen or what the state of things are even at this moment of the show airing. A lot can happen in just 2 or 3 weeks. So it's the situation. It's ever evolving, but regardless, I felt like it made sense to take this opportunity to support federal employees because we help both public and private sector clients at Career Uprising. So regardless, I just thought, you know what? A lot of people are probably even going to be taking this opportunity to leave the federal service if they want to anyway. So let's do it. And then we're going all in basically for the month of March on this topic. So, all right, let's get a little bit more tactical today into the nuts and bolts of the job search going from public to private. So how to present yourself on paper, how to talk about your experience in interviews, and yes, negotiate your salary, which is that's just kind of a beast in and of itself, right? All of these things are really different in the public and the private sector, all right? And also, just the biggest thing too is the hidden job market. That is not something that is really relevant to people in public service. You have USA Jobs where you can go see all the different jobs at every agency. It's all really transparent. You have the salary on there. You have all the specific requirements on there. It's everything I will say is a lot more documented and transparent. And there is a lot of guesswork when you get into the private sector. And not every job has to be posted in one central location. That's why we have this hidden job market. Your job could be found on LinkedIn. It could be on Indeed. It could be on the company website. It might not be on a job board at all. It might be completely unposted. And that is insane, probably for people from the federal work to even think about. Like, what? Well, how am I supposed to find it if it's hidden? Welcome to our world, right? This is what keeps me employed, you guys. Is the coaching that we do centers around all the steps needed to get into that hidden job market. Okay, so if that is a foreign concept or sounds scary to you, this is the episode for you. Okay, all right. So let's first tackle the resume and the LinkedIn profile because those are a big part of it. And to be honest, somebody in the public sector might not even really have a LinkedIn profile. That isn't even as relevant in that world. I think you could get away with not even having one. Um, Not so much in the private sector. So if you don't have one, you're going to need it. That's one difference right there is how the recruiting is done, how jobs get found. It's not really on LinkedIn in the government world, but now it is. So you're going to have to dust off that profile or get one started because that is now relevant to you. And there's a lot to learn there, a lot to learn. But also there's monumental differences between a federal resume, that long 8, 9, 10 pager that you have that has like your supervisor's name and contact information and your GS level and all this stuff. Gone. We're going to transform that and hack it down to a 2-page private sector resume that is essentially a marketing document. It's not just a chronological list of everything you've ever done in your career. It's a strategic marketing document. It's going to serve a really different purpose, and it needs to be hard hitting with results in a very concise way. So we're going to hack that off and summarize a lot of that federal experience and translate it into a language that makes sense in the private sector. And that is so, so important. Okay. So here are some of the things that you're going to want to emphasize on your resume just to kind of get you started and pointed in the right direction. All right, numbers, numbers, numbers. It's metrics and quantifiable results are really, really important in the private sector. Okay, so budgets that you managed, money that you saved, the size of the team that you managed, what percentage improvements you made, all of those things are important, and they need to be probably the most important things that you put on your resume. You do want to highlight leadership and management experience, but also, again, linking that leadership experience to results. What results did you get as a leader? It's fine that you managed a team of 5 people. Okay, great. What else? And what did you do with that? How did that improve the business? Always connect it to a result. Technical expertise is definitely valuable. Problem solving, being as specific as you can when you write your bullet points. To not talk too much just about duties and responsibilities. That went out the window a long time ago in the private sector. I think a lot of that is still really expected on federal resumes that go on and on and on. And our federal resumes are almost like an actual interview on paper. That's like your first round interview. That's not really the case in the private sector. It's more just the nuggets and the highlights to get them interested to want to interview you. That's more of how that process works in the private sector. So come away from duties and responsibilities and definitely get rid of any specific government language in there. Okay. So, for example, a lot of my, in my recruiting days on government contracts, a lot of leaders were called program managers, the program management office, the PMO, or something like that. That's not what we call it in the private sector. You're probably more of a director or just a manager. It's a little bit simpler, but we don't really have program management so much in the private sector. It's probably in a director, but you're going to have to kind of figure out what that equivalent is because it's definitely going to be called something different. So let's break this down a little bit more. I want to help you a little bit with some of this government language so you know specifically what you're probably going to need to adjust on your resume. So that program management is one, or program analyst. Like the government, my God, loves analysts, budget analysts, financial analysts, program analysts. But like, what is a program analyst? If you think about it, what does it mean? That is such a vague title. You're going to have to do a really good job explaining what that actually means. Because in the private sector, we look at a government resume that says program analyst. That just sounds like somebody who just like analyzes stuff and just costs money. Like, I mean, to be honest, like that's just what that's going to sound like. Now, so I'm sure you do add more value than that, but you're really going to have to spell it out on the resume. What are you analyzing and how is that improving the business and the profits and the bottom line? Okay. So, for example, that management or program analyst might actually be more of a project manager or a business operations manager, something like that in the private sector. All right. Or I would also come away from like the GS this and the GS that. That a lot of people in the private sector probably don't really know the GS levels and what that actually translates to. So use a more recognizable job title as well. Same thing with core, contract officer representative. That is not a recognizable term in the private sector. We're gonna have to figure out what that means. Are you more of a contract manager or like a vendor relations manager or something? We need to figure out what you actually do and come up with a better title for that that's gonna make sense. Because if somebody just looks at this and especially the word officer is so military sounding, that is not used in the private sector at all. does not translate. No one is an officer of anything. It's a manager or a director, very simply. So coming up with an equivalent there is good. Same thing with like administrative officer. That is not a thing in the private sector. You're probably an operations manager or a business manager would be my guess. Or special assistant to. Special assistant to the, officer of this or the officer of that. What does that mean? That is not a private sector term at all. Are you a chief of staff? Maybe. Okay. Are you an executive assistant? Maybe. Those are similar, but also different. We got to figure out what that is. Special assistant is too vague. No one will know what that means. Analyst again, like a budget analyst. Okay. Are you a financial manager? Maybe a financial planning manager? What? Tell me more, right? That's probably what that's going to be. I want to just give you some of these examples. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Okay. So come away from using anything like officer or program manager or utilizing the word analyst or anything like that. Okay. So as far as accomplishments, it is also really, really important that you write specific bullet points on your resume that are concise and impactful and emphasize results and quantifiable achievements. All right. So for example, and maybe instead of saying, managed a program budget of $5 million in accordance with federal guidelines, maybe instead that says, optimize $5 million budget to deliver 15% cost savings while expanding program reach. Okay, I got that. In accordance with federal guidelines is meaningless. That I wouldn't even put that on there. But you optimize the budget to do what? Okay, 15% cost savings. Got it. That's a language we all speak. Got that. Okay. Or instead of processed 500 applications per quarter according to federal regulations, you might say streamlined application process to increase output by 50% while maintaining 100% compliance. Okay, got it. We made the process more efficient by 50% and we still were compliant. So be more descriptive and more specific and if possible, quantifiable. If you can't quantify it though, at least point to a specific outcome that happened. What improved in the business as a result of what you did? Do not just tell me what you did. A bullet point is useless if you tell me only what you did and not the impact of it, okay? Can you hear the difference between those two? The government language is very formal and stuffy, and we need to relax that. We need to relax it big time. Okay, so we're going to take a quick commercial break. Stick around. In about 2 minutes. We will be back, and we're going to dive into the interview and the salary process because there's a lot we have to say on those, all right? Very different process. So stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey everyone, it's Lorraine again. While the show takes a quick break, I want to tell you about some of the exciting changes that we've made at Career Uprising. We've unveiled some incredible new features for our clients. We have a new client library with extensive materials, including ebooks, worksheets, and videos to help you discover your value and land a new role faster than your competition. We also have an app. That's right, Career Uprising has an app for Apple and Android, allowing you to connect with me and get the help you need on the go. We've also expanded our curriculum and coaching techniques to make the program more effective than it's ever been. But these new features are just for clients. Let's take the next step together. Head over to careeruprising.com today. You can learn more and book a call with me. That's careeruprising.com. You can also follow me on LinkedIn and subscribe to my free newsletter, Get Hired Over 40. I can't wait to connect with you. All right, let's get back to the show. All right, welcome back. A couple more minutes here, guys. We have to tackle the interview and the salary negotiation process because it's not enough to have a great private sector resume. It's not. That's just half the battle, is the personal branding piece on your resume as well as your LinkedIn. All right. And we didn't really even have time to dig into the LinkedIn. There's so much to unpack, you guys. I really, really have to encourage you to get help in this transition, whether from me or from anybody else, help from your network, because this is a seismic shift to make. Culturally and from a branding perspective. And it's not like we're trying to erase your federal experience. That is not what we're trying to do. So I do not want people to think that. It's not a bad thing. It's not a liability. It's just different. Okay. So it has to be translated a bit. All right. Let's talk about private sector interviews. So I don't know myself in the federal world, like I've never held a federal job. I believe there's a lot more panel interviews and a lot more kind of formality to things. It's a wild card in the private sector. It really is. First of all, it's usually a lot more conversational, and I think that's a good thing. I don't think the interview process is as regimented and structured. I like that. I like conversational interviews more. But it also kind of means that you got to be ready for anything. You could get interviewers that are really, really different. Some are great, some are terrible. Some ask really good questions. Some ask you what kind of animal you think you are. I mean, really stupid stuff. You got to kind of be ready for curveballs and for anything. And you should also be ready for marathon rounds of interviews and ghosting. I'm sorry, it's true. Not everyone's going to get back to you. I think there's just a lot more transparency, structure, communication, regimented kind of step by step process in the government. And that is not the case. Anything and everything could happen. So sorry about that, guys. But again, it's not good or bad. It's just different. There's pros and cons to both. But overall, I think that the interviews are going to be a little bit more relaxed, looser, conversational. And I do think overall that that is a good thing. So you should be prepared, though, for behavioral interview questions. Tell me about a time when you did this. Give me an example of a time when you had to do this. That is still very much out there, and you need to practice and be prepared. And what you need to know is that they want to hear the bottom line results. You always finish your answer with the result that it brought to the business. What did it improve? What did it gain? What did it save? Whatever that might be. So be prepared for questions like, tell me about a time when you had a project that failed. What did you learn? How did you rebound from that? How do you handle conflict? How would you help us make more money, improve our bottom line? What trends do you see affecting our industry? They're going to expect creativity, innovation, collaboration, and marketability. That is what the private sector values. It moves at a quicker pace. All right. So always make sure your examples emphasize business impact. And do talk about money and do talk about metrics. And private sector employers do want to hear about efficiency and cost savings. And I got to say, that is not something the government is known for. And that's not my opinion. That is not something they are known for as a fact. So you might have to overcome that. They're going to want to be looking for proof for not how you cost money and use budget money that was just allocated to you, but how you save money. The government is historically horrible at saving money. That is not what they do. At least in the past. So this new one may be different. But so that is also really, really important. Okay, just something you might have to overcome. And I'm not alone in that assessment at all. I've done enough government contracting to know how convoluted some of the processes are. And yeah, totally different. So, okay, so now let's also tackle something that probably makes a lot of federal employees want to break out a cold sweat, and that is the salary negotiation. So in government, your salary was probably determined by your GS level. It's posted on the salary or the job postings. There's just a lot more of a regimented and probably transparent process in that. Boy, I got to tell you, that is not the case. You are now going to have to learn how to research the salary, take an educated guess at what it might be, and then negotiate it. This is a whole different ballgame. And they may not really care what your GS level was or even know what that means. So we're not going to think in those terms, okay? Just think in terms of the numbers. But I think the compensation itself is also structured differently, okay? So you're not going to get a pension anymore. You're going to get a base salary. Depending on what you do, you might get an annual bonus, but that is not a guarantee. That is probably driven by your performance and the company's performance. You'll have stock options, quite possibly, other types of performance incentives. It's going to be linked to your performance. It is not going to be about tenure and years of experience. It's about what you can deliver. All right. There's going to be health insurance and all those good things, but it's all going to look and probably feel really different. So you're going to want to, once you identify what your private sector equivalent target is, then you're going to need to do some salary research. You're going to need to talk to people within your network or talk to people in the private sector to get a ballpark. You can also do online research and go to basic places such as, Glassdoor, Salary, Payscale.com. I would go to a lot of them. AI can now help you do salary research as well. Use chat, use Perplexity. LinkedIn has a salary negotiation feature or a salary research feature. You might have to have premium for it. I don't remember. There's a lot of tools out there, and you're going to need to go to a couple of them to look for trends and get a ballpark of what you want to ask for. Then you're going to have to learn how to negotiate. Okay. You're going to have to kind of learn how to play that cat and mouse game that we've all been having to play for a long time, where you kind of guess and see who goes first and all this stuff. So we have a lot of resources and guides at Career Uprising to help people navigate this because it looks and feels really different. We also actually have affiliate partners with Career Uprising that are salary negotiation consultants that we can actually pair you up with as part of your program so that you get help with this. Okay. But step one is know the job, then do research on it, then learn how to negotiate. And what do you ask for? When do you ask for it? When do you wait? All of that. Typically, it's something where you're going to delay it until later in the conversation. But a lot of times they may ask you in the application, what is your salary requirements, right? That's a little bit different. They're going to make you show your cards first, whereas in the government, you have an idea of what that pays, right? So it's unfortunately, the employers have the upper hand in this regard. In the private sector, they really do, just the way it is, okay? There is so much more that we can go into. I don't have enough time in hours in my day on the show to really deep dive into everything that is different. But I hope that these last 2 episodes have given you a good idea and a good starting point. And I would really like to invite you to consider working with us. We have generous payment plans, and I will absolutely be flexible for anybody who is a federal employee who's lost their job. So please don't let the cost stand in the way. Let's talk about it. But go to careeruprising.com/discovery call and book a call with us, and we will help you. I absolutely have team members who have this expertise, and we can help you. Because like I said, I didn't even get into the LinkedIn and all the ways that plays a role in the hiring process. You got to have the right resume, you got to have the right LinkedIn, you got to know how to interview, you got to get into the hidden job market. It's a web, you guys. It's like the Amazon jungle a little bit, okay? Welcome to our world. But you can do this, and Career Uprising is ready to help you. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. I hope that was helpful. We will be back with more episodes, and please share this episode with anybody in the federal government that you think might benefit from it, and go to careeruprising.com. Learn more about what we do. Take care, guys. Hey, it's Lorraine, and I want to say thanks for listening. If you found value in today's show, I would be honored to have your review on Apple Podcasts. It's the single best way to help this show be found by other listeners, and you'll earn some good karma. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't wait to connect with you next time on Career Uprising.